Hey everyone, it's Christina Denstead, host of Conejo Valley Visionaries. I'm jumping on to introduce a new series we'll be releasing periodically throughout the year called Visionaries. As always, this podcast is all about sharing the stories behind the amazing businesses based here in the beautiful Conejo Valley, and that mission isn't changing. But I believe we can draw inspiration from everywhere. So with this new series, we're expanding our lens to include conversations with nationally and globally recognized brands, bringing a fresh perspective for starting something on your own or exploring new ideas. So whether you're local to the Conejo Valley or tuning in from across the globe, I hope you enjoy these special Visionaries episodes. And if you're not from the area, I still encourage you to check out some of the other interviews. There are some truly incredible people doing amazing things right here in this special part of Southern California. Welcome back to Visionaries, a podcast spotlighting the founders and stories behind your favorite visionary businesses. I'm your host, Christina Denstead. Today, I sit down with Melanie Masarin, the founder of Ghia. I've known Melanie since living in New York over a decade ago, and I have been so amazed watching her build this incredible brand and really leading the zero proof category with Ghia, a non-alcoholic spritz. I have been most amazed by the ability to create her personal brand alongside the product. And we go deep into that process in this week's episode. And she is so authentic in the conversation and vulnerable and shares the messy middle in which a lot of times founders do not talk about. And I think you're really going to enjoy this one. I loved it, and I'm so proud of what she's been able to create and build, and can't wait to see how Ghia continues to take over the category. So with that, please enjoy this conversation with Melanie Masarin, the founder of Ghia. If you enjoy this episode and find value in the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and rating. This helps more people find the podcast, and therefore each story can reach more folks in the Conejo Valley. Hey, Melanie, thank you so much for joining me today on Visionaries. It is such a pleasure to have you on here.
I'm so excited.
I'm excited because I feel like we go back to your food marketing days when you were back at Dig In, and I was working in food marketing in New York, and being able to watch your journey, not only within the marketing world there, but then creating Ghia from the ground up has been such a thrill. And we also connected, I love this, so we connected back when you moved to LA on Thermomix,
my favorite appliance, still to this day. Shout out Thermomix.
Oh my gosh, I know. I can't wait to hear about the cookbook, all the things that you have going on right now. And so thank you for being here. And, one of the things that I've just been so fascinated in watching how you built this brand is really how Ghia feels more than just a product. It really feels like this kind of brand that takes on a worldview, but like very specifically yours. And I'm so curious, when you started Ghia, was that the original intention? Was that the vision to have it feel like, your French Mediterranean roots? Or what were you thinking back then when you first came up with the idea?
Well, I think it's funny because I get asked this question quite often, and I think that it just how I build things. I stopped drinking, and I think that, like many people, I'm a very multifaceted individual. I like many things, and I'm also a very creative person, and so my brain is restless, and I think needs to be distracted a lot. And I love food and travel and fashion and sharing beautiful things with my friend. I think there's this idea of like the kind of pursuit of beauty with a big B, and that's definitely what I strive for. And so I stopped drinking a few years ago and had the idea. I was constantly cooking for friends and hosting people over, and I felt so excluded, even when I had more people than dining chairs, in my living room. And I had been cooking the whole day for everyone. And I just felt like I was accused of being not fun or, being boring. And this was a few years ago. I think we've obviously made strides since, but I thought there's got to be a better way, and I had worked at Dig In. I was doing some consulting work for Sweet Green. I was seeing the kind of rise of wellness and people become label readers, but then not question, crushing like 3 Aperol spritzes on the weekend. And I was like, this is the only thing you're actually allowed in the US to ingest that doesn't have an ingredient label on it. And no one is wondering why it's so beautiful because it's orange and glossy, you know? And so I just thought there needs to be a better beverage, and the non-alcoholic part was a part of that, and but so much of it was also about the ingredients and the transparency and also the taste. You know, I think that was 2018 when I started. And at the time, there were a number of companies in the UK. They were very much pioneers in the movement. Seedlip was very popular there. It was not yet available in the US. And, you know, I tried Seedlip. I had my mom send it from Europe. And I was like, I don't like gin tonic. Why would I have fake gin tonic?
Yeah.
That doesn't hit, you know? I wanted something that was an original flavor that was delicious. And so I kind of set out to create an original formula. I took I don't want to say all the wrong paths, but definitely all the most difficult scenic
It was
routes.
not a linear direction.
No, I mean, you know, if you, it's very easy for people to understand what a gin alternative is, or, you know, non-alcoholic gin is, but, you know, my elusive Mediterranean Amaro that is made naturally, but is its own formula, and go fit that, you know, on a shelf talker at Target. That's difficult.
Right. Yeah. But you know, I feel like you've always sort of established yourself as this tastemaker. I don't know if you felt that way, you know,
That's
but I
nice to
feel like
hear.
I've looked at you in that way and sort of admired that. And so when you created the brand, not only were you trying to create something that felt true to you, what a clean brand, had a very specific taste profile, but from a brand look and feel too, you know, I feel like you've always kept the bar really high. Do you mind like kind of explaining what the brand process was for you and how you describe it to this day?
For sure. It's, you know, it's funny because we tried to sort of explain to our designers how we wanted the brand to feel. And I say we because at the time I was working with my friend Henry, and it was him and I in my living room like all the time, day and night. And so we tried to kind of personify it. And we said, like, you know, if Ghia was a girl, like she would be the coolest girl at the party, but she'd also be the nicest. She's the one that makes you feel welcome when you walk in. Like I remember these talking points really well because so much of it was about inclusivity, but so much of it was also about creating a product that people would gravitate toward. And so the design was super important. It was like it had to not look like it was a kid's drinks, you know? And there's this French thing called champomy, and it's basically sparkling apple juice, like pomme, but champagne for kids. And you know, you have it at Christmas or whatnot. And I wasn't trying to create champomy. I was trying to create, you know, an adult drink. And part of one of the things that I'm really proud of is that 92% of our customer identifies as a drinker and is seeking moderation. So this is not a drink for people who don't drink. It's a drink that's also for people who don't drink, but it's not a drink that only appeals to sober people or to people that don't drink, which I define myself as someone who doesn't drink but is, you know, not sober. And I think it's just like a new category of beverage that's harder to explain. But when you talk about it, it's not just about how it tastes. Like people don't actually purchase products only because of how they taste. They taste product because of, you know, sometimes their nutritional value, sometimes other things. But for us, and specifically in the case of alcohol, it's a lot of it is about how you feel. And what I've realized building this company over time is that how you feel can come from, yes, the alcohol aspect, the functional, you know, ingredient. And I could record an entire podcast around like functional drinks, which Ghia isn't, very intentionally. But it's also the placebo effect of having a drink in your hand, of relaxing into the moment, of having this aperitivo hours. So the occasion, I think, trumps the product in this case. And so we started with this feels like Ghia hashtag, which we still use to date. And it was like feels like Ghia. And I was like, the other thing is we launched like in the depth of the pandemic. So we could not even get people to taste our product. And to be honest, I'm like a little bit sick of talking about COVID because I feel like maybe there were some silver linings, maybe there weren't. Like we didn't get to choose, but those were the cards that were dealt. And a lot of
Sure.
people said, just wait until it's over. And I didn't. And because I'm stubborn and honestly, I don't regret it. And so it was COVID. We literally could not get people to try the drink. So we had to be a bit more visual. And so it was like, where
Mm.
does it take you? And I always say Ghia as a transition drink. It takes you to a place. So it takes you from work into play. Maybe it's a 5 p.m., you know, to kind of help you relax, or it takes you somewhere to the coast of Italy if you close your eyes and you have a spritz. And those are, you know, those are equally good to me.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think, you know, the different reasons why people buy something, whether it be the taste, how it makes them feel, or what the bottle looks like, quite frankly. When I
Yeah,
buy even, liquor, it's like, what is the label, or what does the can look like? And I think you guys really created you created such a unique look for the can, and it feels like that transition to somewhere else. And I think that that's a huge accomplishment, especially during a crazy time of launch. And I know that that was a big part of the story of just like how and when to do it, but that you successfully launched in the middle of a
yeah,
time when you could not experience it. And what I understand, we like to talk about previous work experience, but a big part of what you were doing before was a lot of experiential in real life for brands like Glossier, for Dig In. So not being able to launch with that experience, but making it an online one. But now it seems like you sort of reverted a little bit to more in-person experiential parts of the brand. Is that a big part of the brand now, trying to have this real life touch point?
100%. I think Ghia is meant to be consumed in the real world. And it's interesting because when I started working on it, it was 2018, 2019. We were on the sort of tail end of this direct to consumer, sort of like omni-channel craze. And so we designed a drink that was made for the real world. And that felt so fresh because everything for the past 10 years had only been designed for the internet. It was the world of sans serif fonts and pastel colors that were easy on the eye. And, the Warby Parkers and Glossier and of this world that were pioneers themselves a few years before, and were copied so much. And so I was like, no, let's make it bold. Let's make it stand out on the bar. Let's make it, and actually sometimes we struggle because our fonts are not that great for email or for full text. And now we have to kind of like create, adjust the design a little bit.
Yeah.
But that felt so new. It was this kind of like fugly burgundy color and bold, like bright. I remember like really sweating over the color palette. I actually ended up taking that over from our designers at the end because I I don't know. I think I like what I like with colors, and I just wanted to kind of like finish it. And I was with my friend Juliana, and I remember like she was staying in my house. And I was like, "I'm putting you to work," and so we spent like hours kind of figuring out the right shade of yellow and the right shade of this, and everything had to sort of take cues from a landscape by the sea, but not be so literal and be a little bit bolder. And so we created this palette I have the bottle here, but it was like burgundy, and this is a new bottle, but the blue hasn't changed. And it was like, this kind of like dark burgundy color and this cap. And I remember we were also bringing people into sort of the process of creating the company. And I posted on Instagram a number of caps. And then I found this cap and I said, should we do the mushroom cap? And I did a little poll, and 93% of people said no. And I was like, we're doing it.
Ah,
And that's how I knew,
you like what you like.
people noticed. They felt so strongly against it. And I mean, obviously, like the cap's amazing. I love it. Don't regret it. But it was not the sleek look that people were used to.
Yeah. Interesting. Is that a way that you make decisions, sort of going against what the
Not so much,
public?
but I think we were trying to the bottle felt unfinished, and
Mm.
we were trying to make it ours. It was before we had the little stripes on the bottle. It was a smooth bottle because it was a stock bottle at the time. And I was trying to personify the bottle in a way, and just looked like a little head. And then we always say these are the shoulders. And so the fact that people responded so strongly that it looked a little ridiculous. There was an element of ridicule in it, but without wanting to create a ridicule brand, I just was trying to create a reaction, create. There's a lot of, you look at Memphis design, you look at like surrealism. Those are things that are illogical in a way, and I think that that's what makes them great. So, without necessarily wanting to be like fully an antagonist, I antagonistic. I was trying to create something that was different.
Well, it reminds me a little bit with a fashion in a way of, having sort of your editorial piece, if you will, that's going to stand out on a runway, but maybe not
Yeah.
everybody will like relate to in person. And I think personally, it seems like maybe by having something that was so unique then helped lead you to get all the press. I mean, obviously, you had the story as a female founded brand. You were at the forefront of a category of non alcoholic drinks that were for people, whether they were sober or not, but also the look and feel of it really. I don't know if that feels right to you, kind of helped establish getting a lot of press, which do you find that that helped with the brand awareness and exposure at the beginning?
I think that obviously my personal brand has grown significantly since launching Ghia, so it wasn't as strong. But I remember, and candidly, we also launched right after the sort of Black Lives Matter protests, and so it was actually we lost a lot of our launch press, which it was just not the right time for that conversation, and understandably, but we did get one piece that came out in Vogue at launch. And I remember like doing sending the press release, and the PR agency said, is there anything you want them to know? And I said, I would love it if we didn't mention Glossier.
Mm.
And they said, well, that's kind of hard, but we'll see. We can't guarantee it, but we noted it. And I just really wanted to kind of carve my own story. And, so much of, I was very proud of the work that I had done in Glossier, but I also like didn't want it to shadow, first of all, I also was really careful. I didn't want to market this as a brand that was too girly, but I also just really wanted to carve my own path, and, didn't want to kind of take away from the work that Emily had done with Glossier. And they said, okay, like they received the comment, like duly noted, and the piece comes out, and I was like, this Glossier alum just launched a really chic line. I was like, no, you can
Ah,
control it, but it was funny. So,
that is
I
great.
think now it helps. It helps a bit more because the brand, I think, the brand is obviously much bigger than me. But my audience has also grown. And like, I think that within my audience, I have people that don't necessarily drink the product, but appreciate the element of like, we've had to sort of lift the category, and make it cool to not drink. And so,
Right?
I'm trying to explain to my team that I am not every Ghia customer. Like sometimes they ask me to make some TikToks. I'm like, that's not me. I'm not telling my drinking story. It's not that interesting. I'm not sober. I want the product to live in the hands of our
Mhm.
customers, but I am one of the Ghia customers. And so I can represent her in a way,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think one of my questions was like this idea of taking on the personal brand of the product that you've created and understanding like what is the balance of that, how what and like what level of responsibility do you feel towards the brand as the founder and how you represent yourself? Have you sort of had to balance that? Is there anything that kind of comes off as risky if you're sharing on your own personal brand versus the Gia
Um,
brand?
Well, I mean, people that follow my Instagram think I'm always on vacation. So I think it's more like managing investors and team and whatnot, because,
Oh,
they sort of
interesting.
like, they fuel each other, but it's like, first of all, I work all the time. I don't know anyone who works more than me. I would love to work less. Like my goal in the next 12 months is to work less. I want everyone to know that. But I think that because I only post, I'm alone in the office today. I'm like, where is everyone? But if you look at my Instagram, because I only post when I travel, you can think that,
Wow, the
I,
perception is that you
yeah.
are a lady about town, but you're also working hard, but people don't wanna necessarily see that, right?
And it takes so many computer hours to kind of sell this like spritz life. But at the same time, I think that that's a good thing, right? It's like you can be the steward of your brand. And, I think that there's a kind of like tastemaker aspect. And also I think yes, I can be a good example of someone who's, highly functional and doesn't drink and all of that. But isn't it better if you go to a great, art show, and at opening, like you're like, oh, it's a Tuesday. I really want to see this art show. It's going to be cool, but I don't want to drink. And there's Ghia and it tastes great and you love it. Like, isn't that the right context for you to be tasting this drink? Like, yes, So I think it's really important to show up in these categories of, fashion, art, culture, etc. And that's a big part of my job, is doing that. But the other part of my job is running the team and running marketing and running finance and running, I manage every department right now. So it's a lot of invisible work.
Yes, sure. No, that makes a lot of sense, and I feel like there is that sense. It's not I don't know what the term is now, maybe you know it. It's not imposter syndrome, but what is this, like, way in which you have to present yourself that also has to be attractive, but in a way, not
Oh,
expose you too much of the, like
1000%.
yeah.
1000%. And when I was fundraising our friends and family around in 2019, and I was moving to LA, I got introduced to a few sort of like music investors or people that were in the talent world. And there was one very significant instance, but it happened a few times, where I was told, "You're a pretty girl. You should be an influencer,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
then we'll invest." And I was like, I think I have more to show for myself, but it was a key consideration. And definitely, founders, female founders, are held to a different standard in terms of, you have to look good, you have to represent your brand a certain way and whatnot. So it's interesting. I don't mind it, because without Gia, I would still want to look good. Like it's still a goal of mine to be healthy. And like, it's not like I'm not changing my life for Ghia. Ghia came out of my life, and I think that it's actually like the greatest manifestation of sort of like my creativity is Ghia. So they fuel each other. I think that sometimes we get stuck on an idea or whatnot, and I go to France for a week, and I'm working from France, but I have the mornings free with no calls until like about 3 p.m. because of the time difference there. And then suddenly I'll be like, let's get on the phone with the marketing team, and I have like a bazillion ideas, you know? And they're like, where did this all come from? I was like, I don't know. I was home and I just didn't have Zooms for 6 hours straight, which never happens when I'm in New York. So,
Yeah, no, a little space for your brain to
Mhm.
actually like enjoy itself. I
Yeah.
know there is that part, and I think a lot of founders try to do what you've done, and it's not just trying to like blow smoke right now, but I really think it's this like nice balance of being able to like create this aspirational part of the brand while also seemingly staying true to yourself and not having it be purely like a influencer feeling. I
Yeah.
think it's a really delicate thing now of like how to find that balance and how to share and what not to share.
Oh, that's very nice. I mean, for instance, I obviously get a lot of brand deals on the side of Ghia, which is so nice. And I'm obviously so grateful because the reality of being a founder is you don't make that much money. And a lot of times they're like, we want Ghia to post. I'm like, no, 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 this is church and state. You cannot. Those are
Mm,
different things. So there's also a level of protecting the business because I think because I seem accessible to people, which is very important to me, that customers don't feel like there's a barrier between me and them. That's not the same for brands.
that's really interesting. I know, and I have noticed that you are very open to responding to people. I feel like you give out your email address and you want to
Mhm.
have that customer service interaction, which yeah, makes it feel very relatable and authentic. And it feels like also true to the person I knew before you even started this brand. So I think that
Yeah.
that's like a really nice thing to be able to see as a through line. One thing that I'm curious about, I know you probably talked about it ad nauseum at this point, but the Shark Tank moment.
Mhm.
So, as people who listen to this podcast are maybe interested in starting their own business, already have, would you recommend they apply to Shark Tank? Was that something that you think was an important moment in time for the brand, or are there other ways to go about it?
There's definitely other ways to go about it. I think it doesn't hurt to apply. You're gonna have to throw some spaghetti at the wall, and if it works, it's great. It's a lot of work to do the application, and then if you go through a few rounds with your producers, and we're not allowed to reveal kind of the process, but it's a lot of work. There's probably like 100+ hours of work leading up to it, and you never know. At least for me, I never knew that I was going to go on there until the week of. So it's not a guaranteed. If you do it, it's great. If you don't do it, you'll be fine.
Yeah. And do you find it helped refine your pitch or any of that kind of, you already
Yes
were
and no.
strong?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we had our pitch down. It's a lot of eyeballs. I think that our episode got something like 4 million views, and it's a very varied audience. But you know what? Easily gets 4 million views today. That maybe was a bit harder to do in 2022. TikTok. We get that
Right.
in a week now. I mean, it's the reality, right? It's like
Yeah.
the Poppy founder, who's amazing,
Yes.
Allison, and I'm living for her billionaire era on Instagram now. Like she was just like traveling around Italy. I'm like, you're such an expander. Follow, follow, like, comment. And she makes these reels and TikToks. She's like, we were one of the first brands of TikTok, and it changed our business. And I was a bit slow to kind of listen to my team really wanting me to get on there, and now I see how quickly we can get views on there, and you never know what's going to stick, so that goes back to throwing spaghetti at the wall. But we'll randomly have a TikTok makes 3 million views. I'm like, surely some people that didn't know the brand saw it, and maybe they'll see it again. It's all brand awareness.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, what's your favorite marketing channel currently? It sounds like maybe TikTok is on the forefront. I have not yet attempted TikTok. It feels a little untouchable, but I think you're right. You just have to try, probably. You just have to go for it.
TikTok is not my channel. My favorite channel is Substack because I have a Substack, and I think for me it's a creative escape. And I have a small but mighty following on Substack. I have 9,000 subscribers. Even though I send it very inconsistently, they're very engaged. So, like, I have moved like $100,000 worth of product in a month with the half the following, in the past year. At random occasions, it's like holidays or a bigger shopping season, whatever. They're not all shopping Substacks, but I've seen people go crazy over certain things on Substack, and
Mm.
that's felt very powerful because it was not meant. It's not meant to be a moneymaker. I think for me, I really started as a way to kind of like talk about other things. I think there was a point in time when I would, show up at parties and would hear people say that's the Ghia girl, and that drove me insane because I like, to think that I'm a multifaceted individual, as we said.
Huh.
But my team really likes TikTok. I think our team in general loves Instagram. It's curated, it's a mood board. We know how to do it. It feels like, yeah, we are very much a brand that was kind of built on Instagram because we had to basically just launch on Instagram.
Yeah.
But TikTok is a bit of how can I explain it? 2 months ago, I told the team we're going TikTok first and we're just trying things and I don't need to approve them. And that's very new. Because I understand that shouldn't have the final word on it. I don't understand it. So the most junior person on the team is the one who approves the TikTok. She comes up with the calendar. If I have to say things where there's a script or my face is on it, I kind of approve the script. Like I'll basically say, I'm not recording this, but we have a good process. And then she sees trends, she tapes them. If she needs me, I'm here. It's been pretty fantastic. Like even as a test for just collaboration with the team, empowering junior team
Yeah.
members, like it's been great. And we just never can predict what is going to work.
Right. But I love that it's sort of your hands-off channel that can still do a lot of work for you, but you don't
Yeah.
have to be as involved. That's really interesting. I do. I love your Substack. And I feel like that is sort of the future. I personally love podcasts, the long form storytelling, but Substack as well really is a
Yeah.
interesting way to reach people and do sort of all sorts of different things. And one that maybe as a personal brand is an important channel for people to take advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, Substack is obviously the demographic on Substack is much narrower, right? I think that I don't know for a fact, but I'm pretty sure my Substack audience is like 27 to like 52, and
Mhm.
probably like high earner, big cities. But on TikTok, it's truly anyone.
Yeah, right. It always surprises me. Sometimes what comes up in my TikTok algorithm is the older lady who's playing pretend DJ on her stovetop. I'm like, I don't know how this woman started this,
How
and
did
I
you
don't
find me?
why am I looking at this, but I'm entertained and I
Yeah.
appreciate it. So it really is. It doesn't make sense in my brain, but I do enjoy being able to scroll through it.
Yeah, it's like I sort of use TikTok. I try to do 20 minutes a day, but it's like a homework for me because I'm trying to understand it and but the algorithm just has not figured me out yet. So, but sometimes I'll get like a really impressive, hair tool, and I'm like, how did you know I need this? It's like scary.
I'm thinking about
But
that. Yeah.
yeah, but then I also get some random stuff that I don't understand.
Yeah. Tell me about this misconception about a founder making a lot of money. I'm very curious, just your hot take on that. Like, how do you handle that? And what does it mean for somebody who's thinking about becoming a founder, I suppose?
I mean, the reality of it is kind of like you're a founder. So I'm making the same salary that I was making in 2015 right now. It's just what it is, not adjusted for inflation. And New York City, obviously, prices have gone up significantly. Um, I think it's like the chicken and the egg also because you're expected to kind of represent the brand in a certain way. You have speaking engagements. You're supposed to like wear different things and just be able to speak to people that are in the investment world or are like successful founders and lead a team. But at the same time, like because you obviously hold more equity, don't you don't even make the same that if you were hired at your level in the company, right? And so I think there's this misconception a little bit. There's a whole Reddit about me where people are wondering if I'm rich, like by birth, which is really fun to watch. Someone sent it to me.
Oh,
Um,
huh.
um, I know it's funny. It happened like when I moved to New York, and
Okay.
yeah, and a few people said it to me. I was like, "How did you know that I was on there?" So, anyways, it's I love sometimes I like look at it. It's quite funny. There's a lot of rumors going on, and it's like, well, you know what? I'm definitely did not grow up in wealth. I wish I had. By the way, no shade. Like
Well, no,
I
but
would love to have a trust fund.
yes. Well, I do. And it is interesting because, and I've heard you speak about this before, about just sort of like the European sensibility is different than the American sensibility and what like,
Yeah,
you had your grandfather had a beach apartment, like that feels in a certain
yeah.
way here, like it feels sort of out of reach, but also that was kind of, those are like the simpler things there. That's how I
100%.
understand.
I mean, it's so funny because when I had the idea for Ghia, I went to my parents and I asked them what they thought, and they were like, why would anybody buy it? It doesn't have alcohol in it. And my parents have, lunch wine probably 200 days a year.
Right.
And we always talk, because I go to France and it's like my dad's Italian, my mom's French. They live in the south of France. The food is so amazing. And there's cheese plates on the table. It's so abundant, but it's also so affordable there compared to here. And I'm like, you guys are going to have a heart attack if you continue eating like this. And they're like, stress is what kills you. And I'm like, there's a part of me that knows that they're absolutely correct.
Yeah, I
They
know.
are focused on the right things, maybe,
Yes.
and mm, they're just they live a completely different life. And I think this ties back to the money thing, in that I think that I was raised to believe that I'm already rich. Like, the money is only one part of being rich. And if you're healthy, and if you have a family, and if you feel loved, you have a job that excites you, and you know where to find joy in your everyday life, like, you're already rich. So I think there's different conceptions of wealth in sort of European and just richness in general. I think there's cultural richness. There's these things are really, really highly valued there. So
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. And I love that. And I think that that's a good way to look at life, ideally, no matter what, is thinking about more than just money, but what that looks like as an overall happiness level.
yeah.
Tell me about cooking. We connected at one point before, not only from, you working in marketing for restaurants, but also with the Thermal Mix and your own personal love of cooking. I believe you grew up in Lyon. You have like this background of like, love of culinary pursuits. I believe you're working on a cookbook. What can you share with us about that and that part of your passion?
Yes, I was so nervous to talk about the cookbook for the entire past year, because I had this crazy imposter syndrome. Because the reality is, I have not been cooking that much because I've been so busy with work. But my cover got approved yesterday, and I'm so excited. It's
Congratulations.
so great. I'm so grateful that the team at Morrow HarperCollins trusted me. It's funny, I needed a little push to do this, and I think it's one of those things that very much, supports Ghia. And I would not have done it if I wasn't the founder of Ghia. I would not have done it yet if I wasn't the founder of Ghia. I always thought that write cookbooks when I grow older and I have plenty of time and all I do is cook all day. But it just became very clear that one of the questions people were always asking us is everything that's tangential to Ghia, what do you pair it with? And this just more of this Spritz life. And it's very much what I grew up on. So for context, I grew up in Lyon. I went to school in Lyon, but my entire family is from the South. And my grandmother, who my mom had me quite young, and my grandmother was very much like, helped raise me. And I spent entire summers with her. And she was an amazing cook. She was a very generous cook. Like, she talk about someone who could make extraordinary out of the mundane, and she had very little means. But when you went to her kitchen, you always felt like a queen, And so she was so thoughtful, and she was so incredible, and she knew how to make just an amazing table. And from a very young age, I was, her sous chef. So
Yeah.
I am. This has always been a little bit of a superpower. When I got in my head that I was going to go to the US for college, I went to Brown, and I just got there and realized that I didn't speak as good English as I thought. And I was really challenging, but I knew how to cook, and a lot of people didn't know how to cook. It was a lot of kids from New York and LA that were used to eating out a lot. And I started cooking for them, and I made a lot of friendships that way. And I ended up running dining services at Brown and meeting a lot of people this way. And so food has always been like my lifeline a little bit. I've never wanted to make it a job. And that's why I never opened a restaurant, even though I feel like New York City could really benefit from an amazing like Mediterranean restaurant. No one's done that. There's like cool Greek restaurants, there's cool Italian restaurants. There's just no like cool South of France restaurant. It's
Yeah.
Riviera food that is obviously my favorite, but it's also very healthful in a way, and it's very vegetable forward. And then also growing up in New York, you have access to such good products. So when an agent, this woman Michelle, reached out to me a few years ago, and then I wrote the proposal and I never sent it to her. And then she also did the cookbook of my friend Jing, who has Fly by Jing, and Becca, who has Fishwife, and Camilla, who has
Yeah. All amazing.
Westbourne, amazing brands. Women who also cook a lot, and who's kind of like from that passion stem their companies. And they sort of like ambushed me one night that Michelle was in town, and we all had dinner, and they were like, we know the proposal is on your phone, show it to Michelle. And so I showed it to her, and she said, send it to me as is, you don't need to make any changes. And I just didn't, I felt like I wasn't a chef. I was friends with a lot of chefs, but I think that that's also maybe what people are looking for, is this kind of, in COVID, I was teaching a lot of my friends how to cook who didn't know, they were isolated and needed to feed themselves. And so I would make small recipes and send it to them. And I think this is exactly kind of the heart of the cookbook, is south of France. It's called Riviera, so it's all the food from France and Italy. And there's recipes that are mine from my travel, and there's recipes that are just 2 ingredients, but most of the recipes are under 10 ingredients and are very simple and are written very much in my voice, even though now they're being edited to be a bit more technical because I had never measured anything before, and that was a challenge for me. But now I know, what a teaspoon of salt is in gram, which feels like a skill. And so, anyways, they're meant to be really simple recipes that are unfuckupable.
We love that. And it seems like, and to put together like an easy entertaining, which also seems sort of part of the brand, is like, how do you, do something that feels really special, even if it doesn't take much time. So, well, when do we have a pub date or?
Spring 2026. So it's being designed right now. We have a cover, and the manuscript, the last edits of the manuscripts are due this week. So now it's like keying in images, and there's so much. I didn't know also how to make a book before, and I thought that when I submitted my manuscript in January I was done, and I was wrong.
No. Well, Riviera, I love the name. It already like brings me there. I can just imagine. So that's really exciting. I think with that, I'm just curious, all of these not little, but I know you're a like you said, you've got all these different multitudes, right? But when you're creating a brand, it feels like a lot of work to think about, okay, now I'm going to do a cookbook. Now I'm going to do this. Does it come naturally to you? Or is there any kind of tangible tip that maybe somebody out there is thinking this through? Are you just following your gut? Or are there mood boards, project, plans on how to pull this all off?
So first of all, I work all the time and it's too much work, but I also feel like I get a lot of energy from, and I think that that's the kind of, a lot of creative people probably feel this way, where it's really hard to do the same thing for 7 years. I've been working on Ghia for 7 years. We launched 5 years ago. There's about 12% of the business that's such a random number. 12% of the business that's things that only I can do. And then the other, 88% is things that probably someone could do better than me, but I'm the CEO and we can't hire 10 people right now. So I'm doing all these things, and those things are more difficult for me. They feel more like work, right? It's like, managing our sales team is a really good example. Like, I wish that we had like an amazing, mentor with 30 years of beverage experience. We have an amazing head of sales who's amazing at managing the team and getting the data. But those are skills that I've had to learn, and probably they're very generous with me, and that understanding that this is, I'm figuring it out just alongside them. But so that doesn't come easy to me. And there's a lot of things that are just don't come easy to a lot of people. Writing my Substack comes easy to me. It still takes me 7 hours every time I do it, because I have to do the collage and, but it's also, when I send it, I feel so good. And I feel like I had a voice in something else that I'm really passionate about. Sometimes I write about design, sometimes I write about fashion, sometimes I write about food, and it's like all things that maybe I don't get to do in my day-to-day with Ghia, and I definitely feel invigorated by this. But no, like, the time management is obviously the most challenging piece, and I have like a million tips and tricks that work for me in terms of working when my head is the clearest and kind of adapting tasks accordingly. But I do feel like most of the time I am in sort of like this kind of Zoom call purgatory.
Just go. Yeah.
It's the reality. Yeah. And I'm not, I don't have children, so a lot of time is dedicated to working.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. What's your vision for Ghia?
I want Ghia to be the number 1 non-alcoholic spritz in the world. I want it to be sold at all of the little beaches along the side of the south of France. I want my children to drink Ghia. I want Ghia to be synonymous with kind of like playful, fun, quality, heritage. And eventually I would love for Ghia to be part of a bigger group of alcohol, so that if you told me you get to be the founder of Ghia for the rest of your life, that's my dream job. I would be so happy. But if someone could take over the kind of manufacturing, logistics, distribution part of it, that would be awesome too.
There you go. I like that.
It can fundraising
be both.
too.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it. What is your favorite Ghia product? And then also, what is your favorite recipe? One of the things that I think is such an interesting way that you approached this was leveraging, food service first in a way. I think obviously pandemic kind of rerouted that a little bit, but a lot of it is like using it as an ingredient to make a cocktail versus just a standalone product. And I think that that's such a unique way of going about it. As somebody, I worked for Chobani back in the day, and they were known for being a yogurt cup. And Hamdi, the founder, smartly said, no, we want to make sure that it's a ingredient that people know how to use. And I was able to be a part of that. But the fact that you like approach that at the beginning of the launch is really interesting. So I guess my two-part, like if you were to just buy a product off the shelf, what would it be? And then if you were to mix it with into a recipe, what would it be?
Well, first of all, can you have Hamdi on the podcast? Because
That is on my vision board, Melanie.
you
He
used
is
to work
like,
for him, Mastertime. He's one of my dream investors. Actually, I'm making a note. I'm gonna figure out his
okay.
email and email him.
Well, we're gonna connect all the dots on this
I
and make
know.
it happen on both sides because he
He's
is
so
truly.
smart. Like, I'm dying to meet him. Yeah. I mean, he must be nuts also because he made so much. Like, if I make the money that he makes, I'm retiring. Like
You know
this,
what? He keeps
I'm
going.
living. He's just like buying other brands. Like I heard he just bought a brewery. He's making some tea stuff now. And I'm like, bro, calm down.
Settle down. No,
Listen
no.
to my parents. They think you're stressed.
Right. What
Or
it
maybe
does,
no, he's just
having
doing it
known
for
him.
fun.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying, having known him at least way back then. I mean, he's a true founder's founder, and that like it just came so easy to him. Like the
Yeah.
decisions he made were just so intuitive. At least that's how I perceived it, and having had one-on-one experience with him, and to be able to create that category and do what he did, and think about using it as an ingredient so early on in that process, I feel like really is something that you seem to have like naturally leaned into as well. And I think that turns it into something more than what it is, which is amazing.
Well, that's very nice, and I'm very glad that I have one point of comment with him. Of common with him, but you have to foster that to turn it into greatness, you know. And I think I'm obviously figuring that out. Obviously, we're always harsher on ourselves, right? But he has turned that into a real success story, financial success, like visibility. It's also an amazing product, and
Right. And it still is, I was just at the grocery store yesterday. I mean, it takes over the whole category still, and that
it's
is really
insane.
impressive.
Yeah. And so, anyways, we launched with the bottle because again, it was a bit of a different time when we were working on it, but the Ghia bottle, which is the original, is really my first true love. And I felt that the ritual of making the drink, I was very much a Campari soda girl when in my drinking days. I mean, I was always a lightweight, but I loved to make a Campari soda, and it was because it's so easy. You don't need a recipe. It's you make that drink like I cook. So it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and you do it by color and it's so simple. But in the moment that you relax it, the sound of it, putting an ice cube in the cup, like you're getting prepared to be more relaxed. And I think that those rituals are invisible to a lot of people, but they're so important. There's so many things that you do, small moments in the day, and those moments I think that I care a lot about. And so that I love the idea of people making a drink in the exact same way that they make a Campari soda. My favorite Ghia product, however,
Oh, what's it gonna be?
has
A
not
new.
launched yet, and
Okay.
I just
Oh,
received it today. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. It looks so good, and
can you share any of tasting this or anything with us?
I think it's going to become our new hero product because
Okay.
it's. So I think that we've innovated a lot in the past, by making a spritz that has lime and salt and
Yeah.
surprising combination of sumac and chili. A lot of people don't know what sumac is. With this one, we really went back to our roots, and so it's very classic.
Okay. I love
I
that.
think it's going to be our number one spritz
And when is that one launching?
in less than 2 months.
Okay. Okay. We will keep our eyes out. I
Mhm.
mean, available and all over the US and
Ghia is available all over the US. It's available in 1,200 restaurants now, which I'm very proud of. You know how hard it is to convince these chefs of anything. And
sure.
specifically, in 2020 and when there was no zero proof category. But um, this one is actually going to be a drinkghia.com exclusive for the first few weeks.
Okay. So we'll look out for that. Very
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What is one piece of advice you would offer to a first-time entrepreneur?
it really, really is a marathon and not a sprint.
And any way that you just keep going, is it heads down and you just eyes on the prize?
Yeah, I think I've been listening to Emma Greed's podcast lately.
Yes.
It's so good. And I had followed her for a long time. And she posted this thing that I want to find that is so true and that I have been referencing back a bunch. I'm going to find this quote, but it's not so much about like keep going. Let me look. I'm sure we can
I
cut
just
these.
listened to the interview that she did with the Poppy founder, Allison, right?
Oh, I
That was,
haven't. My billionaire expander. Love.
yes, I know. Yes, please listen to a very interesting story too. Wow. And the
I mean,
speed.
she had the biggest Shark Tank. They completely changed the trajectory. That's like a very positive Shark Tank thing. They changed her brand. I don't know if it was actually them or if it's good storytelling, but there was definitely a shift in trajectory that happened for her.
No, and I
And
think the investor, I can't remember his name right now, was still her sole investor. Like the major is still investor in the business. Like they didn't take on additional investors. They
that's
continued
amazing.
to. I know it was a
Yeah,
really interesting story. Yeah,
yeah. But I think they had like Kavu and a number. They had good beverage people. She did it right. I love to see her win.
right. No, it's
So,
pretty
anyways,
beautiful.
Emma posted this a while back, which said, nobody talks about the middle, the part where excitement fades and progress stalls, where the work feels endless, the wins feel small, and the finish line isn't even in sight. The middle part is where most people quit, not because they couldn't do it, but because they thought it wasn't supposed to feel this way. But this is actually where the growth happened, push through. One day, this chapter will be the part of the story you're the most proud of. And, I think Ghia is in the middle right now where we're not new. Like, we were just pitched to like was it the Today Show or something? And I'm like, it's not new. And I was like, yeah, but we were new in 2020 and you weren't covering that. And, I think that there's something to be said for trying to sediment yourself into
Mm,
culture without pumping out a bunch of new flavors and creating heritage and focusing on quality and, evergreen things. And so it's not new. It's not the brand that everybody is talking about. It's the brand that a lot of people have adopted as part of their habits, but it's, harder to grow. We don't have a lot of funding, so it doesn't feel like it's splashy. And we're way too small to get acquired and have those kind of like means and resources. So there's like the end of the tunnel isn't really quite there. But I've been doing a lot of work this year about like figuring out what it is, because obviously so many companies are shutting down and like the tariffs have brought to life a lot of things.
yeah.
The markets are just really difficult from both a funding standpoint and also operating small businesses. And we're sort of like, are we a small business? I don't know. We're not profitable yet. So a big part of, that journey for us is getting to profitability so that we can have more control over our destiny. And so that 2025 for us is that. And that's not glamorous, that's not exciting, that's come with a lot of like me doing stuff that I don't want to do, and not replacing team members that had very critical roles in the company, and doing a lot less gifting and showing up in less places, not doing the kind of fun sponsorships. We cannot be on the menu at Tao or whatever is glitzy because we can't pay for it.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more like actual equal partnerships with people. But I just know that if we make it through this tunnel, we will win. And a few investors have asked me in the past few weeks, like, why should we invest in Ghia? And I told them it's because I never give up. And I was like, I said it, and I was just like, you sound crazy. But
No,
I
but
I
it's
know that I'm going to make it through this tunnel, and I think that that's my advice to kind of entrepreneurs is know those times are coming and be ready for them, because it is not from launch to exit. There's like a really long kind of like snake in the middle.
yeah.
And that's okay. I think that people should talk about this time more, the kind of less fun times, the less glamorous times. It's like, I always tell my team, like, Ghia is a theater. So like right now it looks like I'm in this fancy office, in New York, whatever. It's like there's like 40 boxes in front of me, because we
Right.
just closed our warehouse and there's just like shit everywhere. And and that's okay. But also, it's okay to be transparent about the fact that it is a theater that operates a certain way.
I know. And I think that was the thing. It's like, I like that instead of like the imposter syndrome part, because I think that's so negative. I don't think it's anything is bad. It's like, this is what is
No,
happening.
the Reddit about me being a rich girl is kind of good. I mean, by the way, people were so nice, and someone was like, normalize a woman just working hard and making money, and buying herself nice things. And it's like, but I'm like, it's giving rich until, we make it for real. Like that's
Right. No,
it's good, maybe.
I think so too. And as an observer, I would, in my vision, it's like, no, you are big enough that anybody who is smart enough would acquire you for a lot of money right now. So, it is that,
Yeah.
I think that is that huge challenge. And I am, see that as like that big kind of gap of like, what does it look like? What is the reality? And then the idea of just like getting through it to get to the other side. And then you look back and you're like, oh, I don't even remember that happened. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
That's crazy too.
No, it's like what my friends describe as birth. They're like, you forget, I'm like, yes.
Oh, yes, that is very true. And you like remember specific parts about it, but like it still was worth it, which is, a nice thing in the end.
Yeah.
Well, I can only imagine what is going to happen for the rest of this year and into the next decade for the brand. I'm really excited for you. Thank you for being on the podcast and for doing everything to help lead this category and to make this beautiful aspirational life that we can all think about. I cannot wait to get the cookbook and the next product that's launching. Congratulations on everything you've built.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's also been so nice to witness your many lives, and I'm so excited to listen to more episodes.
Thank you, Melanie. Thanks so much for listening to Visionaries, our new series within Conejo Valley Visionaries. I hope you found it inspiring and insightful, whether you're an entrepreneur, a creative, or just someone curious about the stories behind great ideas. Remember, we'll continue sharing local stories from the Conejo Valley, but these visionary episodes are here to broaden the conversation and bring in fresh perspectives. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might find it meaningful. And don't forget to check out some of our local features too. There's so much happening right here in our backyard. Until next time, I'm Christina Denstead. Thanks for being part of the vision. Thank you for listening to Conejo Valley Visionaries. If you liked today's episode, make sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And don't forget to rate and review us. That's the best way to support the podcast. To enter our giveaways, learn about local events, and to find out more about each guest, follow @Conejo Valley Visionaries on Instagram. If you want to share your visionary story on the podcast, send us an email. We are always open to guest nominations. Email ConejoValleyVisionaries@gmail.com. This episode was produced by Christina Denstead and Justin K. Sloan. Conejo Valley Visionaries is edited by Justin K. Sloan and J. Sloan Productions.